There are two ways to beat emotional eating. One is taught everywhere, but actually makes it worse. And the other works, but almost no one teaches it. So watch this video to discover the method that stops emotional eating without willpower, without removing your favorite foods, and without constantly fighting yourself around food. I'm Harry and I've helped hundreds of people who tried everything break free from their emotional eating patterns using psychology. What I'm sharing comes from real client transformations and my own personal journey through this exact struggle. So here's what we're going to cover. First, I'll show you why the willpower approach everyone teaches actually makes emotional eating worse. Second, I'll reveal the one thing that stops emotional eating that almost no one talks about. And third, you'll see how Sarah went from daily emotional eating episodes to complete food freedom and why it wasn't what she expected. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but Harry, willpower worked for me before. And you're right, it probably did work temporarily. But here's why that temporary success is actually setting you up for a bigger fall. Before I explain why willpower makes it worse, let me show you what these control-based approaches actually look like so you can see if you recognize any for yourself. It's things like removing trigger foods from your house, using guilt and shame as motivation, tracking every bite of your food obsessively, saving up points or sins for treats, creating diet rules to introduce more control like fasting, and punishing yourself when you mess up. All these are completely control-based and rooted in fear of losing control around food. And here's the thing, it works in a way. Some people do stop binging temporarily, but many others, like I did, start managing their emotional eating differently. Maybe you exercise excessively after overeating. Maybe you fast the next day. Maybe you save up calories so you can emotionally eat later. I lived this way for years and I was so obsessed with tracking that I felt genuine anxiety when the MyFitnessPal app, the app that I used to track my calories in, crashed one evening. I couldn't eat dinner because I couldn't log it. The control I thought I needed was actually controlling me. Looking back, that sounds crazy, but then it just seemed normal and I was stuck in that cycle. When you do these things, you feel in control because your weight isn't spiraling, but underneath you're still emotionally eating, just compensating for it. The food you're eating isn't health driven, it's to satisfy your cravings. You're not free, you're constantly managing and controlling your life around food with systems. I know what you're thinking, at least having this control stops me ballooning and gaining so much weight and my life being worse. But this thinking is exactly what keeps you trapped. Method 1 fails because it treats the symptom, not the cause. Here's what's happening in your brain. Every time you emotionally eat, you're strengthening the neural pathway, basically the connection between your brain cells. Each time stress leads to food, each time boredom leads to snacking, you're making that connection stronger. It's like walking the same path through a field. Eventually, you've worn a clear track. Your brain learns that this is now an easy path to follow. And just because you've controlled your calories and weight gain, the unwanted side effects, doesn't mean you've helped the emotional eating. The emotional eating urges return the next day because you haven't actually changed the underlying pattern. I had a client, Rachel, who'd been successfully controlling her eating for 17 years. No binges, she tracked everything perfectly, but she spent 15 hours a week planning foods, living in constant anxiety around meals. She wasn't free, she was imprisoned by her own system. So again, method 1 tries to block this pathway with willpower, but it doesn't create a new one. And willpower is absolutely exhausting. You can only resist for so long before you eventually give in and do it anyway. Then you get frustrated with yourself, which often leads to more emotional eating. I'm sure you've had this happen. You're back on that same pathway, but now it's even deeper. So if you're starting to notice that you might be stuck in this willpower trap and want to learn how to fix this, I've created the Emotional Eating Freedom Assessment. And this shows exactly which patterns are keeping you stuck and your personalized next steps to break free. The link is in the description, it only takes 3 minutes and could change everything for you. Now here's what's going to sound completely backwards. Method 2 doesn't try to control food at all. While everyone else is teaching you to fight your cravings and manage your portions, we do the exact opposite. We teach you how to handle your emotions without needing food. When a craving hits, you don't fight it, you don't feed it, you simply sit with it and let it exist. Not forever, just long enough for it to pass naturally. Because here's what nobody tells you. Every craving will pass on its own if you don't act on it. Now, I know what you're thinking, Harry, that sounds impossible. My cravings don't just go away, they get stronger. And I thought the same thing. But here's what happens when you fight a craving. You're actually feeding it attention and energy. It's like trying not to think of a pink elephant. The harder you try, the more focus you actually give it. And this isn't just my opinion. Modern therapy has evolved into what we call the acceptance model. Instead of fighting difficult feelings, we make space for them. We've learned that fighting emotions and craving actually makes them stronger and pulls you away from what matters in your life. So let me show you exactly how this works in your brain. Cravings are like emotional waves. They build up, peak, and then naturally subside. When you fight the wave with willpower, you're actually making it bigger and stronger. When you feed the wave by emotional eating, you're teaching your brain to create bigger waves the next time. But here's the counterintuitive part. When you're in the ocean and a big wave is coming, you don't stand there and fight it. It's too big, too strong. You don't run away because, again, it's fast and strong. You duck underneath it and let it pass over you. And that's exactly what we do with cravings. We duck underneath them and let them pass naturally. And each time you do this, you're weakening that automatic pathway you created, which once led emotions to food. Now, all this sounds logical in theory, but let me tell you about Sarah, because seeing how this actually works in real life is what makes it click. After years and years of emotional eating, she was skeptical that something this simple could work when everything else had failed. Sarah came to me completely hopeless. Daily emotional eating episodes, she tried every diet, every app, every willpower strategy. She'd been looking for more and more control, stricter rules, more sophisticated tracking, better willpower techniques. But this had actually made her problem worse. She was convinced she just wasn't disciplined enough. When she booked a call with me, she expected me to give her an even better control system, maybe strict rules or maybe advanced tracking methods. Instead, I taught her to stop controlling altogether. Instead of fighting her emotions or controlling her food, we worked on two completely different things. First, we taught her my specific race technique to allow her cravings to pass naturally rather than fighting them, because fighting them was making them stronger, as we said before. When stress hit, instead of immediately reaching out for food or trying to resist with willpower, she learned to pause and let the feeling exist without doing anything about it. Now, this wasn't as simple as just don't think about it. That never works. We had to teach her specific techniques to notice the craving, acknowledge it, and then redirect her attention. It's like learning to observe your thoughts from the outside rather than being pulled into them. Second, we worked on why she was craving in the first place. What was really driving this pattern? High stress levels? Using food to cope with overwhelm? Emotional eating patterns she'd never recognized? Within 12 weeks, Sarah's daily pattern had completely shifted. She still had the occasional lapse when life got really overwhelming. That's normal. But instead of it derailing her for weeks, she'd get right back on track. But here's what surprised her most. Harry, I expected this to be another diet where I had to be perfect. Instead, you taught me that I don't have to fight myself anymore. When I'm stressed, food isn't my first thought now. That's the difference between method 1 and method 2. Method 1 creates control. Method 2 creates capability and gives you back your freedom around food. And your brain has been wiring emotions to food for years, maybe decades. You can't think your way out of a pattern in your subconscious mind, just like you can't stop yourself being able to play the piano if you've practiced for years. Plus, everyone's emotional eating patterns are unique. Sarah's triggers were work stress. Someone else's may be perfectionism or control. You need someone who can identify your specific patterns. And if you do want to understand why every diet has failed you and discover the approach that creates lasting freedom from food obsession, I've created a free 4-day diet freedom course. So each day builds on the last, and by the end, you'll finally understand why nothing has worked before and have a proven path forward. And it's completely free, and you can start today. The link is in the description below. So now you know the proper way to stop emotional eating, but most people are making a huge mistake that actually makes them eat more calories. To learn what this is and how to not fall into this trap, watch this next video here.